here we go. All right, this is Gary. I'm here with Natalie Dupuis.
Hi.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
And we're at the EGA National Seminar because it's a chance for us to get together. And Natalie is working on the, what do we call the judging thing? Certification?
Certification to become a needlework judge.
Okay, and you're apprentice?
I'm at the apprentice level,
Okay.
Which means I've passed my exam, my color and design exam, and now I'm just doing a lot of practice.
Yeah, Natalie's been all over the seminar looking and evaluating things and making notes and discussing with people. So we've talked about on several shows my desire to sit down with someone who is a judge and just have a conversation about my needlework so that people can hear what goes through a judge's mind, what they see, what they're looking for, and how suggestions you would make, and so on and so forth. So we're seizing this opportunity when we can both be together to do just that. So this is a charted canvas needle point piece that I did several years ago. It was the Stitch of the Month for A&G. And one of the probably 2 Stitch of the Month things I've ever finished. But there's a variety of stitches, obviously, and different threads, and so it seemed like a good subject for this kind of a discussion. So that's I brought that along, and then I brought another sampler that I did long ago, and if we have time, we'll go through that one too. But this is just an opportunity for us to talk about it. So I'm just going to say go, Natalie, and let's see what happens.
Okay, well, nice for you to pass the baton, but actually, in fact, I'm going to pass the baton back to you because first I want to know your impression of this before I dive in.
Okay. Well, I'm proud of it. It came out as good as I had envisioned initially. I mean, we changed the colors. These are not the prescribed colors. Mm-hmm. And it was a nice challenge in that it had all different stitches, and some I'd never done. So that was a plus. And it required me to stay after it month after month because once you got. But yeah, I was pleased when it was done, and I was pleased with the framing, the velvet, whatever mat, and I mean that was Marga's choice. I'd bow out at that point. But yeah, I was pleased with it in general when I got done with it.
Okay, and so as I understand it, this is not an original design of yours?
No.
Okay.
Certainly not, no.
Okay, and from the instructions that were given, you changed all the colors, but none of the stitches?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Other question, in terms of the darkness and lightness of the colors, did you keep to that? Like, what was the original palette?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I would say generally, a friend of mine, Mary McGuire, helped me select the colors because there's lots of reds. I wanted a maroon look.
Okay.
And so she helped me because reds are not my strong suit on any on any front.
Right.
And then there were several where we couldn't decide at the moment, so I just took both threads.
Okay.
And I can't tell you which ones I chose.
Right.
But as I stitched, not this one. I'm going to go to the other one.
Okay.
So there was some in-flight adjustments made in the colors.
Okay. It's helpful for me as a judge to just have a little bit of a background story, but often as a judge you don't get any background story. But since you're here, I'm seizing on that. And so some of the feedback that I'll give you will be on design in general, which you could use to apply for a future original design should you wish to go down that way. And then we can talk about your technical stitching as well. So the first thing that I look at when I'm looking at a piece is impact. So if I'm lucky, I can see this piece, on a wall, and what's the visual impact here, the overall impression. And my overall impression is that it's a nicely framed piece. It's well taken care of. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into this. And then I start to look a bit closer. Because the first thing that anybody sees, what their mind registers, is the lightness and darkness of a piece. So is there a range of light colors, and is there a range of dark colors, or if it's all lights or all darks, we have a reaction to the mood. So when I look at this, there's the whole range. of colors in here, which is often of higher interest than a very narrow range. So that's interesting. You have a big range here. One thing I thought about when I looked at this is, were I to do this myself from the beginning, would I actually have the lightest in here and move the darker outwards? Because light is often kind of what we're attracted to first, and it could be interesting to have that as the central point. But then I see there's a lot of white in here as well. And you have white here.
Well, see, that's interesting, because when we were selecting the colors, that was a discussion we had.
Okay.
Was, do you go dark to light or light to dark?
Well, I think you need to choose one or the other, and what you actually did is you mixed it all together.
Okay.
So, because look, you get dark, light, and then going darker. So it would have been good to finish this with a lighter one, I think.
Okay.
Or just reverse it. You have dark, and then maybe you have these ones over here, just to reverse that around. So there's a progression of the values one way or the other.
So, okay, so for you visually then, those dark caps on the corners
They distract me.
distract. Okay.
Yeah. And what I want to say is, see this white here? I think this is really lovely. And this very delicate stitching in here. And it's not too much. It still really looks like your white space. Whereas here, you don't have anything. And it looks, to me, it needs something in there. I almost think, did he forget to finish in here? Whereas here, you clearly didn't.
Right.
So there's just something subtle in there. It stayed light, but there's a little something on it. So maybe I would suggest a very, an ecru or this same color of this very, very pale pink in here as well.
And that's interesting, because if there's one thing that bugs me about that, this is set off clearly. But I've always wondered if there should be something in there. So you would almost, like a basket weave tent stitch, ecru, just
a little
take
something
the edge off.
light as well. I mean, it's nice that it's light because it accentuates this. Your eye is clearly drawn to this here because of the contrast between light and dark, but this part it didn't look finished to me. You have some bling in here. You like sparkly, you like beads, and I think, as this is your focal point, clearly, it could have been nice if you had added maybe some beads somehow in here, even just a central one, maybe just one, to bring in the beadwork from over here to over here.
Oh, I see.
A little something, or perhaps you can stitch some in there.
Okay, because we have some Kreinik, we have some sparkle here and there.
Yeah.
But it goes away there. I see.
So I think that would have been nice to draw that in. And I've made a few notes, and I just thought we could talk about them. I wondered if your needlework here and here, you see how you can see your canvas through there? Ideally, you want to go for really high coverage. And if the stitch you chose doesn't give you enough coverage so that I can see your canvas through there, you have a few options. You could increase the weight of that thread. You could use a different stitch, or you can paint your canvas. So if you had painted the canvas underneath, I wouldn't be seeing that
Those little
poking
hints of
through.
white, yeah.
So that would be another consideration in the design stage. You might say, is this the right thread weight for that stitch? And same thing here in this, kind of these teeth here. I could see quite a lot of the canvas in there as well. So I'd be looking for, the thread is laid very nicely and smoothly and flat, and I just have to wonder if a slightly heavier thread would have covered that up a bit more, or less tight pulling as you're laying them down.
Okay, and see, when I do this kind of work, I tend to stitch very tight.
Okay.
That's just the way. So I do get these openings, and
But it's not everywhere. In some of the places, it's really nice and plump and full. There's just a couple of places where I thought, I think the coverage could be a bit heavier.
So a consistency more than.
Yeah. What I quite like, though, I was really attracted to this stitch here and the contrast between the height of that one and, well, that one's quite flat beside it. And then just the angle of the thread is really a nice contrast in here. So it's almost the same value, but because it's quite raised and a different stitch, it's a like really interesting contrast. I'd say for me, the highest interest stitch in here is this section here that you did on all four corners. You know, and then of course you're kind of going for a similar effect here where you've got the two kinds of threads, it's a similar value, but one's sparkly and one's not sparkly. But again, I had a bit of the same reaction, wondering if you have left too much of the canvas showing through in here. That I had, you know, that reaction here. I thought, I wonder if that could be filled up a bit more somehow.
Okay, so this gets to the discussion we were having the other day about, you know, someone else's design and executing what that someone else put together, but then stepping back and saying, wait a minute, you know, I need to advance, improve, adjust the design to give a little better look instead of taking the designer's work as gospel.
I think most designers, I like to think that most designers would be happy for you to make alterations to suit whatever you think is the best fit. And then that could be a stepping stone for you also to go from, these are the instructions, I'm going to make a few adjustments and see if I like it better, and then the next time you try something completely on your own. It also depends on your purpose, right? If you just want to learn the technique, technique-wise, well, you're probably just going to copy 100%. But if you want to maybe enter it in a competition, if you want to think about extending yourself and trying some new stitches that you've thought of yourself, then this would be a good place to do that. For example, if this were mine, was this the thread that was recommended that you've outlined with? See here all this outlining that you've done? That was the recommended one?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to be the right weight. There's something happening right here and right here that's distracting to the eye, but it didn't happen here. So I don't know if there's a small,
look at that.
small miscount, or if the thread is just being very naughty and it won't do what you want it to do. But my eye was drawn to those two areas as well. I said,
And see,
what's
look how this
happening?
held out. Now, see, I had not ever noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, those two are lovely. So as I'm stitching this, I would ask myself, what's happening here? Why is it not looking as nicely done as I've done it here? That being said, Gary, I think I would actually remove this line entirely, these four. Because you have a lot of outlines happening in other places, and it seems very stark against this shade of very pale pink to this darker sparkly, and then into this one. So I would like to know how would that look without that. So these are, you know, all things that you do in the experimentation phase when you're starting to work a design.
Okay, yeah, all right, so visually now I'm kind of erasing that in my mind. Because I can see that it's putting a cut line in there where we have some very nice shades going, and I cut it off. Yeah. And taking that out would not affect this border at all. It would have nothing.
No, I don't think it's
that
just,
border would
just
still function.
But look at, you have the same idea happening here, but it's not as harsh because the color, the light and darkness of it aren't so strong. Whereas here, it's you know, it's
Yeah, because it doesn't matter
border.
here either.
Yeah.
All of these hold up. Okay.
So something to think about.
So that gets to you've got absolute symmetry across the field here.
Yeah.
But do you have to keep with that, or in some instances are you better off without?
You wouldn't lose a symmetry if you take out all four. You know, these two and these two. It's still symmetrical.
But you would take out the metallic that is here, here, and here. Take that out, but still it would retain the.
I'm not even sure you would need to take out these ones. I'm just really focused on these four here. And then trying to figure out what happened here and here, because otherwise it's very smooth looking, and then so when the human eye is drawn to looking for bumps and unstraight lines and finding things that in a symmetrical geometric design we notice it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would think about that. I also wanted to comment on your beads. They're the perfect size for this, and they're all nicely laid. And I can't really see your holding stitch in there. So that's a nice compliment. You found, you or the designer, or because you changed things, right?
Right.
So those beads weren't in there. That's a perfect match to the rest of this.
Well, yeah, and the beads were, I still have 2 or 3 other sizes, so there was some
Okay.
testing going on there, yes.
Yeah, no, that was the perfect fit that you did there. And then I just want to comment on this shade. I don't know if it shows up well on your, from the viewer, but it's quite fuchsia compared to the other reds and pinks. And I have to wonder if you could imagine if this was a paint color and I just splashed a bit of gray in there, if that would just soften it, because it stands out as a much brighter, strong color compared to the rest that you have in here. So is this pink the same as those little pinks in there? It looks very similar.
I believe it is, yeah.
Okay, so that carries into here, which is nice. And then do you have this pink carrying into here?
There would be my opportunity.
Just to kind of like bring in all the colors and bring them across your piece. That might be a design consideration. So I know you're not into making original designs, but I'm giving you this feedback as if this was a design that you had made and tips that you could take forward for consideration on a new piece.
Well, but in this instance, those kinds of suggestions fit into what we did with this, because all we did was keep the framework of the design.
Okay,
You know,
right,
changed all the colors.
right.
And then made some choices on the fly. So
Yeah.
these other things that you're suggesting then fit into that approach.
So here's something a bit wild, Gary. The complementary color of red is green, and I would love to see what this piece would have looked like if your beads had been a shade of green, because that would have made all the reds sing even more. So this, of course, you won't know unless you're back at the thread selection stage and you've just plopped some green beads in there. I'm not talking Christmas green. It can be, a soft, like an olivey or a moss. That could be interesting, because you have chosen some reds that are not pure reds. Like this one here clearly has a lot of gray, and this is a very, very light red, mostly white with a little bit of gray. Red with mostly white and a tiny bit of gray, and here this has some gray in it, these pinks as well. So an unsaturated green bead could have been interesting as well. Oh, because you want to invite the viewer to take a step forward and look a little closer and see what's happening in your piece. So now let's talk about the technical side. I actually brought a form here that judges will often use. There's lots of different forms. So let's pretend that this is an original work. There would be, a lot of points given for, the impact, the color, which we've talked about, impact and color, and then your workmanship as well. So when we're looking at workmanship I thought you might find this quite interesting, Gary, workmanship kind of checklist for canvas work. And let's have a chat about kind of the bullet points that a judge would refer to for canvas work. Does that suit you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking back at my chart, and I ask myself, are all the stitches worked consistently? And so then I put my nose in it, and it depends how much time I have as a judge, right?
Right.
I might spend 5 minutes if I've got 5 minutes to look at it. And my first thought is, yep, they all look quite consistent. There's nothing that stands out in my mind as inconsistent. I don't see any... there's no stitches that look way tighter than other stitches in a batch of stitches. So that's good. Are they going in the same direction, for where they're supposed to be going? This is when you're more talking, like some people, they'll do 10 stitch one way and they won't know that it's supposed to go the next way, that same way on the next row.
Yeah.
So, that's a more beginner piece. And then are they, if you had to compensate, like you would have had some compensating stitches in here and here, is it smooth? Is it done well? Do I notice any glitches in the compensation? And I'm going to say no, but I just don't quite know what happened right here and right here.
Right.
And I don't know if that's based on your metallic thread or if there was some issue on the count in there. But that is something that a judge would probably take a few points off for in there.
And now that you've pointed it out, it really does. It does detract.
Catches your eye too?
No, it really detracts. Yeah, yeah. I'll never look at it again.
And then this one here, the proper number of strands used to achieve the canvas coverage, and that's something that we've already talked about here as well. So that just might be a reconsideration as you're working this. You say, do I need a different thread type? Do I wait? Or do I just need another strand? What's happening there?
Yeah.
And then if you have some pearl cottons, or you're just using DMC, or another twisted thread, is it maintained? Do I see it unraveling? And that would be an indicator to me that you've used the thread for too long. You're working with a really long thread, and it's just getting worn out, and the twist is inconsistent as well. So that can happen if it's just getting too tight and you're not letting your needle dangle, or it's getting old. So you don't want to notice that. And at first glance, I'm looking at this going, yeah, looks pretty good.
That's encouraging because particularly with pearls, I'm always conscious of that. I have some pieces where I ran too long on the thing, and oh man.
Well, I mean, and just a very small example to point out where maybe your thread was too long. This is your DMC here, but some of it is looking a bit fuzzy. So I might say to myself, well, I might give a comment to the stitcher. I might suggest that they use a shorter strand of DMC because it's starting to look a bit worn out on some of this herringbone over here.
Okay.
Okay. And are the strands carefully laid so they're parallel to each other? Well, yep, it looks like that on the, I'm just looking at this section here. And this little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches in there. Yep, they all look nicely laid. Uniform tension, yep. And I can't see the back, so sometimes a judge will, nowadays I don't think it happens that much, but sometimes a judge will look at the back for good technique, but I'm never looking at the back, to be honest. That's not important to me. I want to see this piece on the wall, and how does it present itself on the wall. Let's see, just going through the list here. Oh, okay. Well, worked with the grain of the canvas, so obviously, yeah, clearly that's happened. And you'd be surprised that I have seen pieces that when this is framed, it's like this. The canvas is not nice and straight in there, but it's looking great there.
It's straight. Trust me, that is one of my things. I don't want them to ever have to block it.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't have to block this one. It was dead square when I took it off the frame. So.
Okay. And then maybe this is unavoidable, Gary, because I don't know this for this stitch here, but I can see a bit of carryover through the back, and I don't know if you can avoid that or not. But that would be something that a judge would be looking for too, to make sure that you can't see any threads through the canvas. But perhaps that's unavoidable here.
I think in that one that's tough to do. Yeah. If I recall, I'd have to stitch it again
to know. Yeah. But it's great. Like I don't see dark threads, trailing across here. You didn't go from here to over to there.
No.
So that's good. And that's that's the main things that I would be looking for in a canvas piece. And I just wanted to mention about your matting. I wonder if it would have benefited from actually just being a slightly bigger, 1/2 inch around. Because if you stand up and you look over it, you can see that sometimes you see an entire row here is over, it's not the same, and here it's butted right up to the embroidery, and then it's open down here. So you could avoid that just by even this much. If you had gone this much over, then those small things you wouldn't notice. So that caught my eye when I was looking at the piece as well.
So rather than trying to butt right up to the stitching,
give it some space.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
again, that's a preference thing. Yeah, do you like to show a bit of your canvas? And also that would increase the amount of lightness, white, that's in your piece. And you have to ask yourself, well, do I want more white to be showing in this final piece or not?
So then that is saying to me that the piece is not finished, the decisions are not finished until the framing is done.
Yeah.
That there's still more to be thought out as opposed to
Absolutely.
just hand it to the framer and say, use this mat and this frame and put it together.
Well, you're one step ahead in the sense that if you give direction to the framer to which mat to use, because I've seen pieces, or I've talked to people, they just say, oh, I give it, unstretched and no mat choice. I just tell the framer to do what they would like. And I don't think they're invested in the same way as you are
Yeah,
to
no.
make the decisions. And also, I'm really happy to see that you've taken care of to frame this and finish it nicely, because there are always points given to finishing nicely. And those who don't, it's like they've just thrown away their first place
Okay.
option. They say, here you go, you could just take back 10 points. So anyway, you've done a nice job of finishing that off. I wanted to pose a question to you. If you could change this frame from gold, what would you change it to?
I would, I frankly would have no clue.
Okay.
I would have no clue. And I really, that's one thing where I hand it to Marga. She wanted to hang it on the wall, and I went with her, and she said, how about this and this? And my reaction was, it looks good to me.
Okay.
Go
Right.
with it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she had some need in terms of the way it went with something she wanted to hang on the wall next to it or
Yes,
whatever.
it also has, in the end, when you're finishing a piece, you can decide to frame it in a way that suits your house decor, or you can decide to frame it in a piece that I think this frame works perfectly for this embroidery. So you kind of have two ways that you need to go. I think it's nice. If I was at the frame shop, I would have asked the framer to hold up a silver and to see how a silver would have looked.
Oh, okay.
And this is very square, very, very geometric. And then there's a soft scrolling pattern in here, which doesn't recall the geometric nature of this. So that's just another
So
reconsideration
worth
I might
looking
make.
at something with harder lines or more defined lines to carry that through. Okay.
So I hope you don't find any of that discouraging. I hope what you
Oh,
say
no,
is,
no.
That's interesting. I could think about
No,
that
that's
for
why I
next
wanted to do
time."
it. That's why I want to do it, because you don't get a chance to get that kind of feedback. And now all I do is look at these, and
And think about, should this been
right.
half an inch wider?
But then this color,
Yeah.
now that you've called attention to it, makes me wonder, because it almost, as I look at it more, almost doesn't fit.
I think there's just something that's a bit too bright for it, particularly in contrast with this. And the step down, I took a picture of this in black and white, and the transition of value from this one to this one was not nearly as much as from this one to this one and this one to this one. So I would rethink how much change in lightness or darkness from this square to this square
Okay.
to that square, and then
Yep.
the next one and the next
Yep.
one. Do you want it to be equal? So sometimes what I'll do is when I'm in the planning stage is I'll get my threads out that I'm pretty sure I want to use, and I might take a black and white picture of it and say, do I like the step down of color? Because before our body has, when we look at a piece, our body has a reaction to the lightness and darkness before the color registers. And we get a feeling for the piece based on the lightness and darkness. So all that to say that that's important.
Okay.
No.
Well, I mean, that's, in photography, that's what I was taught by an old master. Learn black and white. If you can get good images with black and white,
Right.
color will just be that much
Right.
better.
That's
If you
just
can't, you'll never get good colored ones. Yeah. Yeah.
So, had you been planning your thread selection, I think if you had taken a black and white photo of your threads, you might have seen that there's not enough contrast between this and this.
Okay.
But I mean, overall, I would say this is a lovely piece. I would write at the end of my critique, thank you for sharing this with me. You have a good range of stitches here. You're kind of showing off what you're able to do with your range of stitching happening here. And this is, a nice almost reference to a big mix of stitches here. And I didn't comment on your nice, your grid work here, your trellis. That's very nicely done. And the white on it looks nice. I think it's carrying in the white from over here across.
Yeah.
Or not white, it's like a very pale pink, is it?
Yeah, it probably is, yeah.
It's hard to tell because that pink, makes an effect on the thread
Right.
that's right beside it.
Right, yeah. I remember enjoying doing that part. Tedious, but fun to get it just so, yeah.
Well, I think this is a piece to be proud of, Gary, and next time it's hanging on your wall, or you're going to go with a monochromatic palette, you can take some of the suggestions from here and apply it to your next piece.
Right. Well, see, now you give me, I have a Debbie Rowley piece that I changed the colors on because I wanted it to be all black, white, gray, all monochrome.
Okay.
And actually was thinking about starting that, and now some of these suggestions I'll go back and look because I bought all the threads, so now I'll go back and take a look.
Okay, so my suggestion is you've got Debbie's threads colors, and
Right.
you've got your black, white, gray. You're going to take a black and white photo of Debbie's colors, and then you're going to match up your black, white, and gray to that color photo.
And see how I did. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because you might think that an orange is not dark, but actually when you photocopy it, or take a black and white photo, depending on which shade of orange it is, it might actually be quite of a darker gray than you imagine.
Yeah.
So that will
Okay,
be
all right,
actually
well,
really fun homework.
yeah,
I think you'll get
yeah.
a good kick out of that.
Now I'm actually excited to go home and get it out and see what I've done.
Yeah, and how you can match it up, you'll be
Right.
able to. And what a fun exercise, and you'll carry that forward.
Yeah. All right, great, thanks.
Okay,
That's fun.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna move this one over.
Yep.
Okay, so just like last time, I'm going to just ask you to tell me how you feel about this piece first.
Well, the story behind this, first time I'd ever stitched on linen, didn't even know about linen, and this was in 91, so back in the days when there was a cross-stitch store every time you turn around, and they had this class on linen, and so I signed up, of course, the only guy in the class, and everybody looked at me weird. And I know that the shop owner didn't think I would be able to handle it or finish it.
Okay.
And obviously
Little
I did that.
she or he know.
Yeah, obviously I did that. But I really have never looked at it since then. I mean, framed it, I liked it, put it on the wall, but never have really evaluated it in terms of did I stitch it well or not.
Okay.
And so it was, and when I sent you the picture of it and brought it along, I still haven't sat down and studied it. So most interested to see what you see just on a first look.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm sure it's flawed because I was,
Well, it's your very first piece, right?
Well,
So
yeah.
it would be interesting to take this piece and just put one of your more recent pieces beside it and see how much you've improved. For me as a judge, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah.
I would, so, I can't say, oh, I'm going to give this person extra points because I know they've improved so much. I don't
Right,
know the
right.
backstory. Usually you don't know the backstory. So, an initial look at this piece, I stand over it, okay, that's a very soft, very gentle palette. And I feel like for the look, the flowers, the hearts, the foliage, it's a gentle piece, and you have a gentle kind of pastel palette going there. I just noticed a few little things in here. I don't know if this is dust or what's happening there, but judges will really notice that kind of thing. And then I look at symmetry. I'm looking for, clearly this is a piece that you can look for symmetry for. Say, okay, it's straight along there. These are all those about the same size, and yep, they are. They're looking very nice, actually, these little eyelets down here. It looks like, I mean, I can see that they didn't end in the same grain as over here, and I don't know if that's intentional or not. So I don't know if you wanted all of these border pieces, these little samples, to end on the same grain.
I certainly would now.
Okay.
I would, at the time, would not have noticed. And if it were centered, off but centered, I'd say fine, but this is clearly not finished.
Yeah, 'cause this one looks like, I think it's lined up there.
Looks like it
like
is,
it
yeah,
is, but this
so-
one is not. So that
I
would
ran
just
out of thread.
well, and what I mean, for a first piece, what I'm pleased to say is I don't see like a lot of trailing happening behind here.
Yeah, no, would not have done that.
So somebody gave you some good instruction on that.
Yeah.
I mean, even in here, where you might have wanted to travel, but it doesn't look like there's traveling. So that's good. And then, of course, I'm going to look to see, have you crossed all your stitches in the same angle? And, from my quick look here, it looks like you have. There's some inconsistencies right here. There's something that happened right here in your tension. That one right there, and maybe this one over here. So that's something that, that instead of giving a 10, if a judge is noticing those little things, you might lose a mark. My first reaction is, whoa, that font is hard to read. So I think like here, this is difficult for me to tell that this word is by. I mean, of course, because I have got this one as my clue.
Yeah.
I just wonder if an easier to read font would have been a better idea.
Yeah, and see, now in looking and talking about it, I would have closed that gap up. Today I would close that gap up considerably, extend the B, and
because you've got your words are close together here and here,
Right.
and quite
Yeah.
spaced far apart here, and the whole alphabet is fairly close together. But I mean, that was probably charted for you that way.
oh
right?
yeah, oh
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Follow the instructions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
And
no,
that's
I-
what I'd
yeah.
probably do on my first go at any piece as well. If this
But
is
now,
a new technique to me.
now I would close them up and center them, and yeah.
This edge here bothers me. I find it's very straight, and I wonder if this should have been staggered out one more on here and here and here and here, just for a bit more round, because I have the feeling overall this is a very soft piece, and then that's a hard line right there.
Well, and now that you mention it, there's room within the borders
Yep.
to make it completely
Exactly.
curved.
Yeah, you could have stepped out here, on both
No
sides.
reason not to. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, as you say, you were following the design. So if I'm speaking to the designer, I would say, well, why not go out a little bit more there?
Yeah.
And
Well, and yeah, I mean, because this effectively does round out, so it kind of, yeah, not a consistency there.
and this mixture of the pastel colors is really nice. And you know what I would have loved to have seen is perhaps if you could put, this is with 2 strands? I think there's 2 strands of thread in there. I wonder what would have happened if you could have blended it a little bit. Or did you? You see this, the 4th row in? Did you just dropped it down one? So I think it could have been interesting if in your needle you had blended the threads.
Yeah.
It just could have been visually interesting because there's no blending otherwise, right?
Right.
I mean, now you know better that your satin stitch, you could improve the satin stitch
Yeah.
on this central heart. But if that was your first go at it,
Right,
well
yeah.
done.
Oh yeah. These days that would have been
Yeah.
tight and smooth. Yes.
But look at how nicely you've done this here, going across. So there's lots of good things to say and a few areas of improvement. Your overall, I think I would change this shade of wood here. This and this are really, they complement that. And this is it's just a bit striking. Maybe a softer, more beachy could have been nice. So the finishing, the tightness of it, it looks good. I think that the framer, before this went behind the glass, should have taken a lint brush on here
Yeah.
for you.
Well, and see that's one thing that you have me thinking about that I never have considered is right here a perfect example. This frame, what is it doing to the piece?
Yep.
And in a lot of instances, I'm sure Margaret has a plan, because
Yeah,
that's
it's
what
going
she...
over the piano that is also that
Right,
color
yeah.
or whatnot.
So, fine. But then when you take it out of context, what is it
or
doing
if you're
to
going
the
to put it in
piece?
a competition,
Right.
maybe at that point it goes back to the framer, and you say, "Can I have another frame, please?" And I'll
Yeah.
put it back in the other one that Honey likes
Right,
when
right,
when
yeah.
the competition is done, because the judge is looking at the overall piece. This is part of the needlework as well,
Yeah.
not the overall piece. Sorry. So you've got your needlework, but you've got your finishing. So the two really, they do complement each
Yeah,
other.
well, and that's what I'm taking out of, one of the many things I'm taking out of it is like I said, the job is not finished until all the pieces are there, and the evaluation of how they impact each other, yeah.
Because you'd like to think that we're just able to put little binoculars on and only look at the needlework, but we're looking at the whole overall piece. And I've seen a number of pieces, even in the exhibition this year, where there hasn't been much effort put into the finishing, and it detracts from the needlework, and that's unfortunate, because you want it to make the overall look even better.
Yeah, and I've seen some, and I certainly don't have a judge-trained eye, but I've seen some where really you should have lined, your edges are not straight. You should have taken that extra effort when you stretched it, because it really does.
Because I don't know how many hours you put into this and the other piece, but you don't want to have those distractions for all those. Well, maybe this is 100 hours of work.
Well, that
So
one,
it just shows how
I was
much
on
you value
a
it.
mission to show the shop owner that I could do it and I would finish it.
So how long did it take you to get done?
I have no idea, but
Okay.
I remember working hard on it. I was...
And did you show her? And you say,
Darn
"Here
right
you go."
I did.
Oh,
She
yeah?
framed her shop framed it.
Well.
You bet she saw it.
High five.
Yeah. Well, it was, she kind of irritated me because, number one, I was a male, and so I was out of place in the class, and and it was in the days of precious moments and all those kinds
right.
of things.
Yes.
And
This is a very precious moments palette here, actually.
yeah. But I wanted to learn, and I really didn't, in the class, I didn't get the help I was expecting.
Okay.
So then it became, all right, I'll just do this myself, thank you.
Well
And,
done then.
Yeah,
And
it
I
was-
mean,
yeah.
would the teacher have suggested any surface embroidery, or it really needed to, like, for example, this done in stem stitch would make these a bit smoother, but maybe that kind of surface embroidery was not permitted on this piece.
Well, and she was a cross-stitch person, and I'm sure that, that any of
Okay.
that stuff would have scared her,
Oh, well,
quite frankly.
you can call this surface embroidery here. So
No, it was very much stick to the thing.
it's nice that this is what is a little raised up piece against the rest of it, which is all flat. So this is quite nicely raised up.
Might have been fun to pad that just a hair.
Yeah, you could even do one more, and then the viewer's attention is going to be drawn to
Right.
that. And our attention is drawn to reds and pink first. It went after the light and dark that I talked about earlier. The next thing we're drawn to is color, and then we see the reds and we see the pinks. And so that's nice that that's there right in the center of your piece, because
Okay, now,
this is your focal point.
would you have done something with this heart, or just left it open? What's your gut reaction to that?
Well, my gut reaction is that I wouldn't even have this heart in here. I would lower this heart down, and I would do foliage on the bottom and top of it.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's fine the way it is.
Oh, but look at that. No, I can see how that would be fun.
You still have the pattern.
Yeah, I do.
You could have another
Yeah.
go at it. You could change the colors, and
Yeah,
have another go at that. This is a few little design things that you could play with.
Okay, because that has, in the design, that open, empty heart has always been the one little niggle that it seemed like it just
It needed something, because this has something in the inside.
Yeah.
I guess they want to make that the focal point. But then my question is, well, what is there any added value of that little heart in there?
Well, see, my eye goes, it does not go here. It goes here because of that dead white space. And that's why I asked you if you would put something in there, because like even if you squint, if you squint and look at that,
Yeah.
that one will pop out.
Yeah, and exactly. I mean, a remedy to that, instead of changing everything that I'm talking about here, just a little bit of foliage in there could be
Yeah.
nice. I wouldn't do another little heart.
Right.
I'd probably just add some foliage like you have in here.
But taking it out, dropping it down, and putting foliage at the top.
That could be fun.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
New challenge.
Yep. Yeah, still have the chart. Tripped over it the other day. Yep.
Well, I think you've done a nice job here, Gary, and it's a good learning piece. You know, with the eyelets here. You know, that's something different. There's a mix of accounted stitches in there. Tiny bit of surface embroidery here. Again, I would change this to stem stitch probably.
Yeah.
Just so you don't have any, my eye is really drawn to smooth lines that are supposed to be curved, and there's a little jiggle in. I always see those straight away. So I think it's a very good learner piece. And, you know, in a competition, I can't say how this would do because it depends what else is entered. And unfortunately, most of the times in North America, we're judging piece against piece, instead of having a rubric and judging a piece based on a rubric. And in Europe, you know, I just took a judging course, and they talked a little bit about the Danish method of judging, which is always based on a rubric. So many pieces could get a first place.
Oh, I see.
If they've got the top scores in the rubric. And I think that would actually be a much better way to judge, and provide the rubric to the stitcher before competition entry, so they know exactly how they can get that top score.
Yeah, because you could easily say, well, mine is easily as good as that one. Why didn't I? Yeah, because the judges had to rank you somehow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that being said, in the education exhibition that's on right now that you've been filming, there's a couple of pieces in there that I think are so charming and get my attention from a distance, and even like, you know, up close a bit, but then when I really look, the technique is not good, so it would never win first place.
Wow.
But judges have the opportunity to award judge's choice or honorable mention, and these are pieces that have many good elements, but technically they're not going to beat the first, second, or third place prizes. So it's nice that there's that flexibility to offer those kind of prizes as well. There's something special about it, but technically it's not gonna, you know, beat the other competitors.
Yeah. All right, terrific. Thanks, Natalie. That was
You're welcome.
fun.
Thanks, Gary.
That was good. Yeah.
Take care.